Two Boston Bruins rookies scored their first career goals in a 3-2 victory over the Dallas Stars on Monday. The big story was Jeremy Swayman, who's putting together a pretty nice, dare I say, Vezina looking season. We'll talk about how the Bruins beat the Stars and also look at the updated Atlantic Power Rankings and some perhaps concerning underlying numbers for the Black and Gold here on today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoke to Be. Today is Tuesday, November 7th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get a $150 bonus bet with any $5 money line bet. Winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon to get started as Bessie jumps out of my way and helps me see what I'm reading. All right. Happy Tuesday, friends. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for joining me once again. Quick reminder before we jump in, you can find the podcast on X, Threads, Instagram at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my dad jokes, hockey thoughts at Ian C. McLaren. And the Bruins extending their season opening record to 10-1-1 with a victory over the Dallas Stars on Monday night. And of course, one of the big stories in this one was the goal scoring that came off the stick of John Beecher and Mason Lohrei, each youngster scoring their first NHL goals for the Bruins. Brad Marchand getting the game winner to secure the victory for the Boston Bruins. 2 goals from rookies, the fourth line chipping in Beecher's case. It was really important, Jim Montgomery said after the game. The Bruins wanted to jump on the Stars early. They were able to do that. Huge push over the last 7 minutes of the first and second, and then, of course, in the third. But the Bruins were able to play well enough with the lead to lock it down. Beecher is playing in his 12th NHL game. He made it 1-0 at 10:21 of the first period on a glove side shot to the top corner past Jake Ottinger. Lohrei, who was playing in his third NHL game, extended the lead to 2-0 later in the first with a shot from the high slot past a screened Ottinger. Beecher said, "It's just about as happy as you could ever be. Not only to get the first one, but to score a big goal in an away game to help your team win." Fourth line played fantastic and helped him get a couple of opportunities. Fourth line of Danton Heinen, Beecher, and Oscar Steen instrumental in this win. Huge goals for both players. Beecher, of course, his spot on the team is getting more and more secure as things go on. Lohrei, perhaps a bit tenuous just because he is a fill-in at the moment with Matt Grzelcyk on LTIR. Charlie McAvoy suspended. 1 game left on that suspension. There was word that he was going to appeal. I suppose if he put that in, they could reduce it by 1 at this point, but unlikely. And Derek Forbort day-to-day with an injury of his own. So how long they need to keep Lohrei deployed and in the lineup remains to be seen. You would expect, of course, that as guys come back, it would be Ian Mitchell, Parker Wotherspoon, who will be sent down first. So realistically, Lohrei could be with the team through Thanksgiving based on Grizzlies timeline, which I believe is the 25th as the best case scenario when he can come off LTIR. Now, that's not to say Lohrai's game was perfect either. He did have a turnover that led to the second goal, I believe, for the Dallas Stars. And he was not relied upon late in the game to help lock things down. They elected to give more ice time to some of the veteran players, which is understandable. Kind of a debate on social media this morning as to whether that's a detriment to Lohrei, whether or not the fact that he can't be relied upon perhaps yet in those late game situations is a signal that he should spend some more time seasoning in the AHL once everybody is back and healthy. You can make an argument both ways. For now, he is there. He was fifth in ice time last night among Bruins defensemen. Witherspoon, Mitchell, third and fourth, respectively, with Kevin Shattenkirk actually getting the lowest amount at 15:11. Brandon Carlo, 25 minutes, 16 seconds. Hampus Lindholm at 24:25. And then Mitchell, the next closest, at 17:47. They're really spread it out among the bottom four and relied on the top two. Lohrei, at the end of the day, had one shot, one goal, and that was a big reason why the Bruins won, was that goal that he was able to score. So we'll see long term whether or not he remains with the Bruins for the balance of the season. The same can be said of Matt Poitras, really, who was kind of quiet in this one. Poitras had, let's see here, 13 minutes and 11 seconds of ice time. I believe he was in the 20s in terms of shot attempt differential, 20%, that is, on for many more shot attempts against than for. But, still a contributing member for sure. Danton Heinen with the primary assist on Lohrai's goal, which was great to see him get involved there as well. So those were a couple of the highlights for the Bruins. Lohrei, Beecher scoring, not unlike Charlie McAvoy, Jake DeBrusk scoring their first goals in the same game, 6 years ago, back in 2017. A picture of both was posted reminiscent of what happened back then. And it's cool to see these young guys stepping up and making instant impacts. So the youngsters, huge. The biggest factor in this win was goaltending, and we'll discuss Jeremy Swayman's campaign to date and his performance last night here as the podcast continues. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. And it's not just football either. You can place bets on the NHL, NBA, Major League Baseball. Their app is so easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options like spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. I talked yesterday about how the over-under on the Bruins-Stars game was 5.5. Came in on the under, so if you did that, you're laughing this morning. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, and you can get in on the action this NFL season, as well as NBA, NHL. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On tomorrow's podcast, we'll bring you all the latest on the black and gold. Still meaning to get to a Joe Thornton episode after his announcement of retirement last week. So perhaps perhaps we will fit that in tomorrow with maybe a history moment. We haven't done that either lately. Jeremy Swayman was magnificent last night for the Boston Bruins, making 35 saves for the win. And he is off to a spectacular start to this season. Again, Linus Ullmark was the big story last year, winning the Vezina Trophy. Jeremy Swayman right up there. In fact, leading the NHL with a .952 save percentage so far this season. Jeremy Swayman, a perfect record of 6-0-0. He has stopped, again, 95% of the shots against him and putting himself in the early Vezina conversation. The thing with both Ullmark and Swayman, of course, is that they split starts. So the win total may not be as extravagant as other goaltenders, but the way the Bruins are playing, they win enough to certainly warrant consideration. And in last year's case, Ullmark did enough overall. The Bruins were so good that even in splitting starts, he still had the most wins in the NHL. Right now, Swayman 6-0-0, behind only Thatcher Demko of the Vancouver Canucks in terms of wins. And he's ahead of Demko in save percentage, .952 compared to .948. Those two guys clearly the class of the NHL at the moment, although there are some other guys playing very well. Adin Hill in Vegas, Cam Talbot, usual suspects like Igor Shesterkin. Who else? Jake Ottinger, who the Bruins beat last night. Joseph Woll in Toronto. But at the moment, Swayman leading in terms of save percentage. Now, I should add, Semyon Varlamov has a .972 save percentage, but he's only played in 3 games compared to 6 for our boy Jeremy Swayman. Swayman said his performance last night was a culmination of all the games. A lot of these teams have great identities, funneling pucks to the net. Tips, something he's got to work on, he admitted. Both goals last night against came on tips, which is frustrating. He wants to make sure he gets on top of that when he gets back to Boston. One game at a time. It's all he really cares about. And the experience is what makes him better and allows him to make those saves. Kind of ridiculous that Swayman, 35 saves, .952 save percentage. And he's like, let's get home and work on saving tip-ins, which are a challenge for anybody. At the moment, the Bruins leading in terms of save percentage at all strengths, 93.9. Only the Vancouver Canucks come close, really, at 93.6. And you can make an argument that the Bruins are kind of being not saved, but lifted, certainly, by their goaltending so far. Last night's game, the underlying numbers were not favorable for the Boston Bruins. At 5-on-5, they had a 40% share of total shot attempts in this game. Dallas Stars generated 58 shot attempts, the Bruins only 38. Shots 5-on-5 were 29-18. Scoring chances were 24-17. This is all in favor of Dallas. High danger scoring chances 12-6. And expected goals 2.2 to 1.3. In all situations, didn't get much better. 78-57 shot attempts. Shots were 37-29. So the Bruins were able to generate 9 shots on the power play and got 1 power play goal, which was the difference. Literally, that goal scored by Brad Marchand on the power play was the game winner. High danger chances, 17-11, 3.21, 3.11, the expected goals. So not a huge difference there, but Dallas certainly owning possession and generating a lot more than the Boston Bruins last night, which is a bit of a concern in terms of the overall underlying numbers. We'll look at this a bit more when we talk about the power rankings coming up in a moment. But right now, the Bruins at 5-on-5 are below 50% when it comes to shot attempt differential. They rank 19th at 48.42. When it comes to shot differential, they are at 49.82. High danger or scoring chances 51.86. High danger chances 53.33. So that's a bit more encouraging. And then, of course, right now, their save percentage 94.55 at 5-on-5 play, which is really helping to make up for that shot differential, which is negative for them. So all that to say, last night, the kids stepped up. Lohrei, Beecher with the goals. Captain Brad with the game winner on the power play. But 5-on-5, this game was dominated by the Dallas Stars, and it was Jeremy Swayman who really kept this team in it and who's making a very early case for Vezina Trophy consideration. How cool would it be to go from Ullmark to Swayman winning the Vezina, really highlighting that partnership, that tandem. Right now, they are in line at least for another Jennings Trophy, as the Bruins are allowing very few goals against overall. In fact, their goals allowed of 23 is best in the NHL, ahead of Vancouver and the New York Rangers. So that's the story from last night's game. What does it all mean for the Atlantic Division power rankings? We'll take a look at those quickly here as the podcast continues. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. David Pastrnak challenging for 60 goals once again. Maybe the Bruins get over the hump in the playoffs and lift the Stanley Cup. And you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy hockey app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports. And with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether Pasta or Swayman will record more or less on their Sleeper projections for goals or saves. And to win 100 times your bet, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. Use promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL on Sleeper. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Let's quickly jump into the power rankings, which I need to fill out for the Locked On Network here today. And of course, the Bruins, let's just get it out of the way. Number one in the Atlantic, an .875 point percentage, 21 points through 12 games, a 6-point lead atop the Atlantic, and their goal differential of plus 16 is also tops in the Atlantic, although it's third at the moment overall behind Vancouver and Vegas. Going down to the bottom, though, some real problems in Ottawa. They had fire the coach chance in the nation's capital over the weekend. They're currently 4-6 through 10 games. Shane Pinto suspended. They lost a first-round pick because of the Evgeny Dadonov trade. Fired their GM. Could the coach be next? 4-6. They've lost 2 in a row. They do have a positive goal differential, but things are not looking great for the Ottawa Senators at the moment. In 7th place this week, we're putting the Buffalo Sabres. They're 6-6 through 12 games, plus 1 goal differential. They won their last game. Maybe things are turning around. They have recalled Matthew Savoie from a conditioning stint in Rochester. Maybe he'll give them a boost. They really haven't been clicking as of yet. Not getting, the same amount of offense they got last year. Their defense still needs some improvement. So Buffalo continues to reside near the bottom, 7th place this week. Montreal, as I predicted, slowly dropping down. They've lost 2 in a row. They're 5-4-2 at the moment. 545 point percentage, a league low -6 goal differential. Perhaps they'll get a bit of a boost from bumping number 1 overall pick Juraj Slafkovsky to the top line, which he scored on the other night, playing with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. But again, the long-term projection for this team, especially with Kirby Dach out for the season, not great. And they should, I would expect, finish in 8th. Barn burner of a game last night between the Maple Leafs and the Lightning. Lightning were up 4-1. Toronto tied it, took the lead. Tampa tied it, and then Toronto eventually won in overtime. And fittingly, both of these teams have identical point percentages, 583. Same amount of points, 14 apiece through 12 games. And I'm putting them in 4th and 5th, respectively, with Toronto getting the edge because they got the win last night, although Tampa has a better goal differential, +3 compared to 0 for the Maple Leafs. 42 goals for, 42 against. Lightning, 45 for, 42 against. The Florida Panthers, I'm putting in 3rd this week, 6-4-1. They won last night against Columbus. 6-4-1 through 11 games, playing without Brandon Montour and Aaron Ekblad, who should be back soon, and that should give them a real boost as well. 2nd place, Detroit, 7-4-1. They beat the Bruins, of course, on Saturday, but not enough of a boost to put them over in the Atlantic. They're still 6 points back, I should say, and their 625 point percentage pales in comparison to Boston's 875. And their goal differential is +8 compared to Boston's +16. So this week, Bruins clearly number 1, followed by Detroit, Florida, Toronto, Tampa, Montreal, Buffalo, and Ottawa. Let me know what you think. If you agree, disagree, if you have a higher outlook for any of these teams. The Bruins will next be in action coming up later this week. They are fully off today as they travel from Dallas back home. They will take on the New York Islanders on Thursday night at TD Garden. And then they will play the Canadiens on Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday in Montreal. So a bit of a back and forth week for the Bruins on the road, back home, up to Montreal. A couple good games coming up against the Islanders and the Canadiens, a couple winnable games for sure for the Bruins as they look to increase this stellar record to begin the season that has been largely built on exceptional goaltending. Not the whole story, but that's a big reason, especially last night, why they were able to win. Thank you so much once again for taking some time to listen. Thank you for joining me here on a daily basis. Smash that subscribe button if you have not already. And we'll talk to you again here tomorrow on Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.